Good morning, students. Welcome you all once again to my English class. Students, today I am going to teach you a chapter of your English supplementary book Footprints of class 10. Students, as because CBSE has already curtailed 30% of your syllabus, so chapter 1, chapter 2 of your this supplementary book have already been completed by another teacher, and chapter 3 and chapter 4 have been deleted from your syllabus for this session. So students, today I am going to start a chapter of your English supplementary book Footprints Without Feet, chapter number 5. Chapter number 5, and the title of this chapter is Footprints Without Feet. The chapter and the title of the chapter is Footprints Without Feet. Students, before starting, I would like to give you small introduction of this chapter. This chapter is based on imagination. This chapter is all about a scientist who discovered the process to become invisible, which does not exist on our earth right now. But as because I already told you, this is based on imagination. So students, let's start the chapter Footprints Without Feet. Can a man become invisible? This is a story of a scientist who discovers how to make himself invisible. Does he use or misuse his discovery? As I have already told you that this is about a scientist named Griffin who had recently discovered how to become invisible. So let's start to read out the chapter and whether after being invisible he is misusing it or using in a good manner. Let's see. Starting with two boys. The story starts with two small boys. Let's see. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. What was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? And where was the man? As I told you, the story starts with two small boys. And these two small boys were in surprise. Why they were in surprise? They were in surprise because they found some bare feet footprints on the way they were moving in London. So in London, generally no one comes out of their chamber without feet, without shoes or slipper. So it was very unusual for these two boys to find the naked feet footprints on the earth's surface. As they gazed, a remarkable sight met their eyes. Fresh footmarks appeared from nowhere. Further, footprints followed one after another, descending the steps and progressing down the streets. The boys followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter, at the last disappeared altogether. These two boys started following the footprints on the way, and soon they found that the footprints appeared on the footpath one after another. But these two boys were in surprise as because there was no man. There was no person, but the footprint footprints were coming one after another. So it was very surprising for them. But after some time, these two boys found there were no other footprints. Means the footprints stopped being appeared on the footpath. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. Who was that man whose footprints were on the footpath in London? It was a scientist. It was a scientist who had recently discovered the way to become invisible. So it was the footprints of an invisible man. The footprints that the two small boys were following were of the invisible scientists, of an invisible scientist. Griffin. And what was the name of that scientist? Invisible scientist? Griffin. Griffin, the scientist, had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body could become invisible. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. So this scientist named Griffin found the way to become invisible. He made experiments after experiments, but finally he found his success. He prepared some of the drugs, medicine that helped him to be invisible. But though he was invisible, but he was as solid as glass. Means somebody who wanted to catch him, he could. Means the man, Griffin, the scientist, was totally invisible, but he was as solid as glass. Means he could be caught. Brilliant scientist, though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. So here we came to know a kind of characteristics of this scientist. He was brilliant, no doubt, but at the same time, on other hand, he was lawless person. Lawless means a person who does not obey law and order. I repeat once again, lawless means lawless person, the person who does not obey law and order. So he was very brilliant, undoubtedly, but at the same time he was a bad person. He was lawless person. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. His landlord, because of his behavior, disliked him, and there was a quarrel between them. And as because to take revenge from him, Griffin, that bad scientist, set fire to the house to get away. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Thus, it was that he became a homeless wanderer without clothes, without money, and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. So, as we came to know that this person was very bad, he was a lawless person, a person who does not obey law and order of the country. So there was a quarrel between him and his landlord. His landlord disliked him, and his landlord wanted to eject him from his house. Eject means to exile. Okay, to means exile him from his house, eject him from his house. And in against to take revenge from him, he set fire to his house. He set fire to his house. And he wanted to escape from there, from police. He wanted to escape from police. That's why he removed his all clothes and became invisible and escaped from there without clothes, without money, and quite invisible. But somehow he happened to step in some mud. And as we know that he was totally invisible, but he was solid as well. So when he entered in a muddy place, there was a mud in his feet, and when with the mud he was walking on the way, on the path, the footprints were on the footpath. And that was the time when these two small boys followed these two naked footprints. So, next, he escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London. But his adventures were by no means over. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. It was midwinter. The year was bitterly cold and he could not do without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. So, he escaped from the place, he escaped from these two boys, and as he was naked, and it was the midwinter time. It was a very bad time for him because it was midwinter. It was the month of January. There was a bitterly cold outside. So without clothes, he was feeling very cold. He was feeling very cold. So without walking on the streets, he decided to go inside of a store which was in London. It was a big store where various sections were available, like kitchen section, food section, clothes section, clothing section, or some other sections. Like Big Bazaar. We know Big Bazaar is a big means place, mall, okay, where we can find out various type of things, food items, clothings, some other means garments, or some other utensils, various type of food, vegetables. So he decided to enter in a store. So he entered in a store. Closing time arrived. As soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regard to expense. He broke open boxes and wrappers and fitted himself out with warm clothes. Soon, with shoes, an overcoat, and a wide-brimmed hat, he became a fully dressed and visible person. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and with wine taken from the grocery store. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. So when he entered in a store, he was waiting to get the store closed. Now it was night, the store was closed, and then he started, after closing, he was all alone inside of the store, and then he started finding the clothes, woolen clothes. He found woolen clothes. He put on the overcoat, hat, shoes. Then he went inside of the kitchen section. He found cold meat, coffee, meal, various type of foods. Means finally he found his woolen clothes which gave him very comfort, warmth. Then he found food that he had eaten, and then finally, after getting comfort level, he went into sleep in the quilts. Quilts means the big, the thick size of blankets. So finally, he slept inside of the storeroom. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. As it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. When he saw a couple of them approaching, he panicked and began to run. They naturally gave chase. In the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. So once more he found himself invisible but naked in the chill January air. See, he was sleeping inside of the store after having food, and he was so relaxed that he could not wake up early in the morning. If he would wake up early in the morning, so he could manage to survive him, but he was sleeping till the assistants, means the salesman, the staffs of the store opened the store and entered the room. As soon as the staffs of the store entered the room, he woke up. Griffin, the scientist, the invisible man, woke up and found that two salesmen were approaching, coming towards him. And he knew that he was visible that time, as because he put on the jacket, hat, shoes. So he knew that he was visible because of his clothing. So he was in panic and he started running away from there. He started escaping, means he escaped from there. Soon the staffs started chasing him and shouting, "The thief, thief, thief!" inside. Started shouting and started chasing him. But somehow he managed to escape from there after putting off his all clothes inside of the store. He took off his all clothes and again he became naked and escaped from there. Again he became totally invisible and he was outside in the open of London. In an open area of London, outside. So students, it is my first video of this chapter. So up to here I have completed. I will explain the rest of the story in my next video, in my next part. So till then, be happy. Thank you very much. Bye.